Great to have you with us. It is 3:35, and just a little reminder, it is Eye on Education this hour. So technically, we've got two podcasts. So there's the normal Afternoons with Helen Farmer, and then there's Eye on Education. So you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. So Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Dubai Eye website. It's every single Thursday from 2 o'clock. And we're talking about what you're talking about. And up next, it's the exam cancellations.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Repton School Al Barsha. Exemplary British education for ages 3 to 18, where ambition is nurtured and potential is unlocked.
So the last few weeks, some big headlines in education, exams being cancelled, so IB, IGCSE, A-levels across the region. So thousands of students are facing a very different end to the academic year than they'd expected. But it does raise some big questions. How will they be graded? Will it be fair? What does it mean for university places? There's been some spiralling, but there's also been a bit of anchoring in terms of reassurances. And behind the scenes, of course, schools having to rethink how they assess performance, support the students, and maintain motivation during a time that can feel pretty uncertain and very high stakes. So joining us in the studio is Matthew Whittaker, who's the Assistant Head Teacher for Sixth Form at Repton Dubai, to help us, Mr. Whittaker, understand, I guess, the reality for students right now. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Helen. Thank you for having me on.
I did say off air, you didn't need to come to the studio, and you were like, get out of the house, put a suit on.
Absolutely.
I think it kind of keeps us honest a little bit, this idea of like, put your work clothes on, go and see some real people.
Yeah, it does.
What does a typical day look like for you now with sixth form students in terms of teaching and lives and tasks and hours at Repton Dubai? Can you demystify it for a bit?
Yeah, so at Repton Dubai, we are very focused on maintaining that strong routine. Students are very much still following their normal timetables. Live lessons are still taking place now through Teams as our platform that we use in school. Registers are taken as normal. Resources and recordings of every lesson are also uploaded. We've adjusted our timetable slightly to allow for the fact that we are having a lot more screen time. So we've moved from sort of full 1 hour lessons to 40 minutes live teaching and then 20 minutes sort of independent work, which of course allows students to move off their screens, stretch their legs and just kind of have a little bit of breather.
I think that kind of really speaks to the fact that you have got that agility to go, do you know what? We tried that, and perhaps you did start to see a glazing over of the eyes in the last 3/4 of the lesson and say, do you know what, right, you've got your task. Let's close the laptop. Let's put pen to paper or, move into a different room. And how amazing is it actually to have that agility and to be able to go, right, we see this in our students, we see what's working, let's make some tweaks. And moving forward, it's going to be in a different way. How's the mood right now? As I said, the last couple of weeks have been some big changes. Your age group is that sixth form. What are you seeing in this moment for the students right now?
So I think we are seeing very, very focused and engaged students. And I think that's mainly because we've maintained that consistency and we've kept our expectations very, very high. Because lessons are being taught in full and not just set purely as independent tasks that teachers and students just kind of crack on with. Teachers are giving regular feedback. And that's meaning that actually students are engaged. They are accountable. They are involved in questioning in those live lessons. They're responding to feedback from their teachers, and they're really making progress as they normally would in school.
Because this period was, of course, supposed to be about revision, final preparation as well. So how has that focus then shifted in terms of what the students are doing now? Because to be completely honest, if I was 17 and my A-levels had been cancelled, I don't think I'd be exactly the most motivated student out there, Mr. Whittaker. So in terms of how you're best using this time with the change, what shifts have you had to make?
So I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying. This time of year for sixth form students, it's mainly focusing on revision. And of course, it isn't looking like that because we've moved towards those teacher assessed grades. So while students are still attending lessons as normal, there is a stronger focus on completing that high quality work that contributes to that overall evidence base.
And that's exactly it. There's still the curriculum to cover, whether they are, year 12 or 13, there's still the information that they need to, I don't know, What subject do you teach, if you don't mind me asking?
I teach business.
Okay. So if they go on to do business at university, for example, what we don't want are these massive glaring gaps in their curriculum because they checked out because of the exam cancellation. That's that's the logic. Trying to convey that, though, to a teenager, I'm sure is probably a very different reality for a lot of parents who are, trying to keep that momentum going. With that cancellation, would you mind just explaining a little bit about what the reality is for assessing students right now? Maybe they had been holding back their good stuff for that final exam and now they're not going to have the chance to shine. For anyone that hasn't heard how these A-level, IGCSEs, but A-levels in particular we're talking about now, are going to be assessed for 2026 in Dubai, what do we need to know?
So yeah, the international A-levels and international GCSEs have moved to teacher-assessed grades. So what that means is sort of a portfolio of evidence for students. Now, one really big part of that is sort of mock assessments that they've taken, but it's also lots of different pieces of evidence from the sort of the year and a half, 2 years that they've been studying with us. So it's classwork, it's coursework, it's ongoing assessments, which are then standardised across departments. So our heads of departments now are very, very busy reviewing those samples of works. Yeah. And so we're having regular internal moderation meetings to make sure that the work that students are producing are high quality and do reflect the best of their abilities.
There is a concern, understandably, about fairness, though. How do you ensure that these assessments are kind of genuinely reflect each student's abilities? What are some of the safeguarding that happens behind the scenes?
So like I say, so those internal moderation meetings, working closely with heads of departments to make sure that the range of evidence that they have and that they're basing their assessments on are realistic and accurate, and nothing sort of, extrapolated too much.
What about personality types as well? Are students responding differently depending on their personality? There are some, and I was actually one of them, who thrive under exams versus those who prefer coursework. Basically, are there going to be winners and losers as a result of these cancellations?
I think there are always going to be winners and losers in anything, really, but I think it's our job as schools to make sure that that's minimised and that students are not disadvantaged by the different assessment methods.
It is clearly an anxious time, and I think for parents as well as students. What are you seeing in terms of student wellbeing? How are you supporting that, and are there any signs that you think parents should be looking out for at home right now if they are struggling a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of student wellbeing support, we are making sure that students are having regular contact with their form tutors. They're meeting with them every single morning before they start their lessons. And that's a really great opportunity for tutors to check in with the students and sort of look out for any issues that they might have. Our heads of year are also closely tracking sort of their engagement in live lessons and their well-being. And if we do have any concerns, then we absolutely follow it very quickly with students and parents if we need to.
We're going to keep Mr. Whittaker with us today, Assistant Head Teacher of Sixth Form at Repton Dubai. We are talking about exam cancellation, about student well-being, and I think that next piece is the big thing that's helping a lot of parents spiral, about universities. How and why could this be particularly a bit tricky? And also for parents, how involved should you be? Where's that line between support and pressure? Any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out on 4001.
Business Shoutouts on Afternoons with Helen Farmer.
Hi, this is Kimberly from Mike's Veterinary Clinic.
With us, it is 3:48. Helen with you. It is, of course, Thursday afternoon. Tomorrow is Friday, and what a week it has been. Just a quick reminder, you have, of course, got starting up at 10 a.m, and I'll be back with you live between 1 and 4. Still, though, we need more answers about these exams.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Repton School Al Barsha. Exemplary British education for ages 3 to 18, where ambition is nurtured and potential is unlocked.
We have, of course, seen exams disappear, but the pressure doesn't. It just kind of changes shape a bit. So for sixth form students, this time should be this big final push and, highlighters and sticky notes everywhere, the culmination of years of work. But instead, many navigating cancelled exams, alternative assessments, distance learning through screens, and I think a lot of unknowns about what comes next, which is not a nice feeling. So we've been talking about how schools are ensuring fairness and supporting well-being and motivation, I think, when the finish line looks completely different. Matthew Whittaker is with us today, Assistant Head Teacher of Sixth Form at Repton Dubai. Talk us how the students and the schools are adapting. I think it's that what next thing that's spinning a lot of people out, Mr. Whittaker. Tell us a little bit about the university application process. Will these, I was going to say exam results, but I guess these grades be interpreted in a different way? What are you hearing about that stage?
Well, we are in regular contact with universities, and they are very, very familiar with the approach from only a couple of years ago when they had the same kind of assessment in COVID. So they are continuing to make offers based on those predicted grades as they normally would, particularly for UK universities. And these alternative assessment methods, they are well understood and they're well accepted. So really our focus now is making sure that the work that we submit to the exam boards for the teacher assessed grades is a strong and also a very fair set of evidence to support those predictions and those applications.
Oh, for parents, though, it's really tricky territory. I think there's no age or stage of distance learning that is like a particularly sweet spot. You know, those early years, trying to engage little ones, for primary, there's a bit of kind of how independent can you be? Have you really completed that task? And then, of course, with secondary, we've seen all these stages and parents navigating their own challenges with all of that all the way through. So when we're looking at sixth form, getting that line between support and pressure, what advice would you give parents listening who don't really know how to navigate this right now?
I think it's really about just sort of those simple things making a difference. So having a routine at home, a quiet space for students to study, and checking in regularly, like you say, without adding too much pressure. We've
also snacks.
And also snacks, absolutely. make sure they're well fed. We've also really encouraged parents to use the communication channels that we've set up as a school. So we're currently hosting weekly parent briefings so that parents feel informed and reassured, so that in turn that they can do the same to their children as well. Because
that is ultimately what happens. You know, kids pick up on the temperature of the room, and if mum and dad are spinning out and going, well, we were supposed to get this, and this was the timeline we were working to. That anxiety will inevitably be passed down, knowingly or unknowingly, to that student. So if you're there as the kind of the port, I've been used the phrase of the port in the storm a lot over the last few weeks, but offering those reassurances. And I think at this time, it is all about communication and transparency, about saying, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, this is what we advise. This might happen, in which case this is our plan, and just strengthening that relationship, more than ever. Coming back to the assessments, though, do you think this could potentially change how we assess students in the long term? To your mind, what do you prefer as a sixth form teacher in business, as you said, is your subject? Are exams, maybe a thing of the past if we were to look to the future?
I don't think they are really. I think, we've been through this process in COVID already. We haven't seen a change to the assessment methods normally. So I think, exams are always sort of the best way to assess a student's sort of memory and their retrieval practice. That being said, I think in the future it could move to how A-levels were many years ago, where it's a mix of A-level and coursework, and perhaps not as reliant on those exams as an assessment method.
Lastly, on a personal level, Mr. Whittaker, as you said, you've been through COVID. Tick that box. Now we're doing regional crisis for the resume. What has this taught you about what really matters when it comes to education? And that could be for you as a teacher. It could be about the school that you are there at Repton Dubai, or even what you're recognising in the kids.
I think really for me, it's been such a strong sense of community that we've seen through Repton. Everybody really has pulled together, and I genuinely mean that, from parents, students, staff. Everybody really has come together and sort of worked to what has been best for the students. And I think that has really resonated with me. That's been the most important thing.
It's been tricky to see a lot of hate, to be honest. A lot of kind of, we're not getting value for money, or this isn't sustainable. And I think it's really important to point out that everyone is doing their best, by however you measure it. And as we touched on earlier with Glenn, teachers want to be teaching. You want to be face to face under the right circumstances. It's not about rushing back if it's not the right time. And for parents, I think I just want to offer a bit of grace, really, that no one's mental health is tippity top right now. And if you do have a crossword with your teenager, or, you have a bit of I've had quite a few friends crying with their kids over distance learning over the last few weeks, of just going, it's not forever. It's not. It is. And I might feel like it's not forever. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be done. And ideally, we're all kind of friends at the end of the day. Is that a realistic goal? I hope so.
Absolutely, yeah. I really think it is. And, just if I can give some advice to students, actually, it would just be really to focus on that consistency. Make sure that you're attending every lesson. Make sure that you're completing work to a high standard and acting on feedback from teachers. And I think it's those small things that if they're done well every single day, they're the things that will make the biggest difference for their final outcome.
Yeah. Now, teaching business, I just have to ask you because I find it really interesting. Whenever I talk to universities, they've been talking about a couple of subjects that have really exploded in interest over the last few years. Psychology is one of them, and business is the other. And we were talking earlier with Audrey Hametner from the Bedrock programme about AI-proof work, the jobs that potentially could be safe in 10, 20, 50 years down the line. And I think being an entrepreneur has got to be up there. Do you want to state your case for studying business at A-level? Because it's something I really regret not doing. I think you obviously can be taught entrepreneurship by your parents if they have that kind of life and income. You can learn it through a teacher such as yourself. But I think it teaches you a lot about the world, even if you don't go on to work in business. Would you mind explaining a little bit about why you think it's such a great subject for A-level in particular? Yeah,
absolutely. Business for me is probably the most important subject that any student can take. And I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there when you said about giving those worldly examples. Business is taught through lots of different examples of real businesses. Mm-hmm. And so students have the exposure to that through studying A-level that actually is transferable to lots and lots of businesses when they actually then go into the world of work. They study the fundamentals of business, essentially, marketing, production, human resources. And so actually then when they hit the world of work, they're actually able to use what they've learned, that theory and that knowledge, and apply it directly to the workplace.
And I guess then you start to look at the world in a slightly different way. You start to put those pieces together. I spoke to Daniel Priestley, amazing entrepreneur and author recently, and he's very big on raising entrepreneurial kids. And I was asking him, how does he navigate this with his own kids? And he'll say things like, if it's a hot day, which businesses do you think are doing well today? And they're young kids. Which businesses might be having a bit of a slower day today? Or let's look at a particular business. What would their costs be? If it's a hairdresser's, what are they having to pay for? Okay, then paying for rent, and they might have to pay, for equipment, and there might be staff, and how do you... And I was like, and these are conversations he's having with, 6, 8, 10-year-olds. And then you get, obviously, to a more sophisticated level at A-level business. And you've got kids who, I guess, as part of their work, are coming up with their own business ideas. Any standout examples over the years, Mr. Whittaker?
Standout examples...
I knew they thought, actually, do you know what? I'd back that.
Yeah. we some of our BTEC students recently did do some pitches where we invited in different entrepreneurs from across Dubai. And they had some fantastic ideas for sort of shop in a box, different retail ideas that they would do. Some of the ideas that they came up with were absolutely incredible, and absolutely you could market those as businesses yourselves. Yeah.
Wow, watch this space. Thank you so much for your time today. As I said, credit again to the teachers and educators over the last few weeks, just going above and beyond in so many different ways, not just in time, but in terms of creativity and connection. I know you've been having to adjust just as much as the students, and you've got more on your plate than ever before. So thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us. I really do appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Matthew Whittaker, Assistant Head Teacher, Sixth Form at Repton Dubai. You've got in the green room, the debrief team. I am back tomorrow from 1:00. We are going to be talking about restaurant resilience and reopening. Chef Jason Atherton is going to be with us. Theatre's happening, short and sweet. We're also going to be looking at alternatives for indoor markets, a membership that could shake up your weekend, and we love a collaboration. Sure Lash is going to be with us. Plus, who would open a restaurant at this time? Well, someone has, and it looks absolutely delicious. That's all coming up from 1:00. Leaving you now, though, with the debrief.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.
Your bank.